Well, let's stay with those gears. Aviwe Mtila is still, tracking what's been happening, checking the situation around the country this morning. He's in Vosloorus. Several people were arrested yesterday. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila at Hani. More, good morning to you, colleague. What's the very latest from the ground?
Dumelo, I have to warn you now, we're going to show you graphic visuals at the Hani Mall at this current moment, where sadly one person has lost their life. I'm assuming in the stampede that happened overnight. You'd remember that the police were playing cat and mouse, essentially being overpowered. But we're seeing that, come this side of Mohammed, we can't show such graphic visuals. Maybe show it from this angle, please. A person that has passed away in what appears to be a stampede overnight here. You remember that there was that ongoing back and forth between police and the community, mobs and the looters around the Hani Mall in Vosloorus. When we left ourselves, the situation was quite volatile. Clearly the police were being outnumbered and they needed reinforcement at that very moment, but it appears that they were overpowered. As you can even see, there are firefighters this very moment, as the mall itself happens to have been burned and it's totally cleaned out. I'm going to try and move away from this person that has been covered by this cardboard here, as he has clearly lost his life in that situation that was going on. Let's try bring you visuals from the other side. Mohammed, please, Mohammed, come this side. As you can see, the firefighters this side. We want to show you the actual mall, the other side. These were the scenes where you saw about 100 people arrested from yesterday morning. In that continuing back and forth between the police and the mob that was here. Around 1,000 people around Vosloorus coming in to loot and steal at the Hani Crossing Mall. Eventually the police, late afternoon, it appears that they got overpowered by the mob, and now it's just damage control that's being done here. The cleaning up from the emergency services. They have about 3 firefighter trucks on the other side here as they're trying to just clean the situation. You're going to see just in a moment the filth that was left behind in the wake of what was a clear overpowering by the mob that was here to the police. Remember, it was a joint effort even on the ground from the Metro Police, South African Police Service, as well as private security. But judging by the outcome and what we see here, they've totally ransacked this mall. The looting of this mall started in the early hours of yesterday. The reinforcements were here for the majority of the day, but you could see what was brewing, essentially, Tumelo, with the mob here out like hyenas waiting for their prey, and the prey being the mall. It seems like they've managed to beat that line and essentially made their way inside here. Sadly, one person is added to the number that I understand is over 70 deaths around the Gauteng province. A lot of those deaths happening in stampedes as these mobs of looters make their way in the various malls. This is one side, essentially, where the police were trying to hold the line, firing those rubber bullets. And even one of our crossings here, we could see how volatile the situation was when we had to retreat ourselves and decide our safety is paramount, having to pull out. But it looks like those police here were defeated, as we can clearly see that the looting happened here, everything ransacked, and even the roofs. Now you can see the emergency services quelling what had happened, trying to just clean out. Even some of the looters are around this very moment, Dumelo, picking up the remains of what is left, which is, as you can see, one of them walking with plastic bags this very moment, followed by another elderly person, a mother, just walking casually like nothing is happening. No police at this moment, no private security. We haven't seen any of the SANDF officials. This is one of the areas essentially where the arrests were happening. But you can clearly see the filth on the ground here, and you can see some of the looters coming out, leaving just as if they coming back from the mall, essentially, which they are, but now coming back to steal. As you can see, that brazenly walking, no police, nothing to guard the mall, essentially what is left of it, because it has been totally ransacked here by the looters that have looted. This is the sixth mall that we've been to in the last 3 days, myself on the ground here. I remember we brought you 5 malls that were totally ransacked. This mall they moved into yesterday. There were about 150 arrests here, but clearly that wasn't enough. Even the law enforcement officials that were here in numbers were overpowered by thousands, and it was a sad scene seeing even adults, the parents, waiting on the other side in the outskirts with their cars as the young ones coming out in their numbers, hundreds essentially, provoking the police. Eventually we saw how volatile the situation was, decided to leave, and clearly it was a good decision seeing how filthy the place is. The police cars themselves were battered, the police nyalas themselves were run over, but you can see the filth that remains, as essentially there are no goods left here. When we left, at least there was about 70% of the stock around the mall, but clearly now they've been all overpowered. We see there are 2 police vehicles further down the mall. Not sure what they're doing, as you can clearly see community still walking brazenly with some of those stolen goods, those looted goods. A sad sight, Tumelo, as you remember, one person in all of this chaos we just showed you now has sadly lost their lives, and just sitting there without even being assisted by anyone, covered by a cardboard in the aftermath of the looting that clearly continued for the majority of the night and still is continuing this very moment.
Yeah, as you're giving us those visuals, Aviwe, I remember precisely just yesterday morning when we were here in the very same Chris Hani Mall, and I'm reminded of, a pharmacy just ahead of where the camera is facing right now. The owner of the pharmacy trying to salvage the little that was left, and I just wonder if other shops had an opportunity to at least save on some of their stocks, or like you saying, if unfortunately that stock now gone.
There were 1 or 2 of the shop owners that came out as the police. Remember when we brought you this first here at eNCA, brought you the visuals of the police arriving as the looting was starting to happen. You can see even one helicopter hovering above the Chris Hani Mall at this very moment. Some of what the policing is doing this moment. But there were 1 or 2 of the shop owners at that stage that came with some of their vans trying to take, salvage what little stock there was in their shops at that time. But of course many of them stayed away, fearing for their lives, because the situation was quite volatile. This whole mall was surrounded, Tumelo, by community members, as those about 150 people were arrested. More came in numbers, Tumelo, and it was just a sad situation to see how some parents coming with their children in the front line. You question yourself, what's going on in these parents? What message are they sending to their children? And it's not an issue clearly about poverty, because we saw your luxury vehicles here, your German vehicles, your Mercedes, your BMWs parked on the other side waiting to steal the goods, essentially, as these shops have this similar image that you're seeing now, totally cleaned out and ransacked. So as much as some of the shop owners try to salvage some of the goods, the majority of the goods in this Chris Hani crossing have been totally ransacked and cleaned out by the thieves in the community.
Yeah. We're going to leave it there. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila out in Chris Hani Mall showing us those visuals coming through from Vosloorus. It seems the brazen looting has continued, and unfortunately police as well as other law enforcement not being able to contain the chaos from at least yesterday where we left. Thank you so much, colleague, for that update.